Hi, this is Cloris. How are you doing? Today, I just want to wrap up my practicum experience at Kita in Germany. To be specific, in Munich. I think doing this unpaid internship for 2 weeks was one of the most eye-opening and rewarding experiences I've had after moving to Germany. German Kitas have very specific philosophy, focusing on Selbstständigkeit, independence, unstructured play, and a lot of outdoor activities. Before I go into details, I would like to give you a bit of overview of the Kita structure. Kita basically means the daycare centers in Germany for kids, and within a Kita there are Krippen and kindergarten. So Krippen is for children under the age of 3, and kindergartens are for kids between the age of 3 and 6. It's very different from the kindergarten and nursery in Hong Kong because the kindergarten system in Hong Kong is divided by age, while the system here is more like blending the children at similar age into groups. It depends on the size of the Kitas. For my practicum at the Kita, I basically experienced both groups, the Krippens and kindergarten. At the very beginning, I was put into the kindergarten group because they thought I have a university degree and I would like to talk to kids more. But the whole experience was quite overwhelming on the first day. I was completely a newbie there and I have no education in early childhood pedagogy. I had no idea how to handle kids, so I was just more like assisting the educators or observing the kids. So for most of the kids, I think they are pretty well behaved, except sometimes they are a bit more attention seeking. There were like 3 or 4 Vorschule kids, like they are around 6, and they would be going to elementary school or primary school after the summer. So kindergarten is something very boring for them. So they would intentionally do something to create chaos or seek for attentions from people. It's understandable, but I really didn't know how to handle that situation. So the other educators would have to spend more effort into controlling them and keeping them quiet and calm, which is also very hard. But in the same classroom, there were other kids at the age of 3, 4, or 5. They are a bit more calm, but each kid just has different personality, of course, and some of them are very sweet and curious, so they would come to me and talk to me. While they were playing on the playground, they even asked me to join them, to play with them. So it was quite a funny experience, but at the same time a bit overwhelming because I really didn't know how to handle those Vorschule kids. And I've realized that all the German I've learned is not really suitable for this kind of situation. I really don't use German on daily basis or in a more domestic environment. So I didn't even have the vocabularies to talk to them. All those vocabularies I've learned were mainly for job and studies. So during that time, I've learned some vocabularies like Kaka and Hör auf and Aufräumen. Even though these are simple words, they are just not the words that I use on daily basis. But I would still say the vibe in general is really laid back. It's not as stressful as that in the corporate world. After finishing the first day with the kindergarten, I started the second day in the Krippen. So those are more like toddlers and even smaller kids who are under the age of 3. They are just cute and more calm and quiet because they still can't really communicate in fluent sentences. Some of them were even just 2 years old or less than 2 years old. They weren't even able to walk for a long distance. They were most of the time crawling, but they were just so cute and so sweet. But sometimes as an Asian, I would even worry that they would be bullied by other kids because they were just so small and so fragile, but probably it's not what I thought. It's just my presumption. So if they were to play on the playground with other kids, for example, if they are playing on the sand, when a toddler wanted to join the older kids who are like 3 years old, they would push the toddlers away. They didn't want to play with smaller kids. But I also see some kids who are more affectionate. They would be cuddling or squeezing that little toddler. But other educators would tell them to stop it. The toddler is not a puppet, so you shouldn't treat the toddlers like that, and which is also quite funny. But overall, I would say it's a very loving and warm-hearted experience. And after the full day, I would miss them and I would be looking forward to see them the next day. The first very fundamental and significant difference is that in Germany, Kitas always value free plays. They encourage kids to have this autonomy to decide what they are going to play and what they're going to do during the day. In each daycare center, they usually have garden or playground. It depends on how much people pay for that kindergarten. Some charge higher, some charge lower, but of course the facilities would be a little bit different. The one I worked in is a private kindergarten, which is one of the most expensive kindergarten in Munich. So they provide better facilities to kids compared to many of other kindergartens. But I also have a friend who works in the public kindergarten, which is fully government funded. And they also have a really big garden, big playground for the kids. For the public kita, they charge less than the private kitas. But of course, it's also more difficult to get a place in the public kindergarten because the competition is quite strong, especially in this kind of big city. One very interesting and surprising thing for me is that each kid would have their own schedule. This is what they call booking time from the parents. So some kids might come to the kita at 8, some might come at 8:30, some at 9 or even later. It depends on the parents' preference, and they also come to pick up their kids at different times according to their needs. Some would come to pick up at 1:30, some would come at 2 or later. I think around 4 or 4:30, most of the kids are gone. So basically, the daily routine would be like they come in the early morning to eat breakfast together, and then they will have morning circle. So they would form a circle and sing together. If they're in a kindergarten, they are older, they would be learning like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that, or counting numbers. But for the younger kids, they were just like singing songs and then also checking out who is on vacation, who is here today. That was quite interesting for me. And the songs are also very different from what I've learned in my kindergarten. So every day I feel like this is a very positive vibe and everyone is really happy. After the morning circle, they would be playing usually outdoor at the playground, and the older kids might stay indoor or they play also outside. It depends on the weather and the daily schedule planned by the educator. After playing for a while, they would come back to the classroom for lunch. One benefit working at the kita is that you get free meal, free lunch. So I didn't have to do some meal prep or prepare my lunch because it's also provided by the kita's kitchen. And after lunch, the Krippen kids under 3 years old would go to bed. One interesting thing is that we have to help them to take off their clothes because they can get really sweaty when they are sleeping. And they have this specific room for afternoon nap. They will have the blinds for the windows to block the sunlight so that the kids can take a better nap. And in the classroom, they also have some blinds to block the sunlight because some other kids in the kindergarten would not sleep during that time. They would just do some other activities, maybe drawing or just chilling around. They can choose really like different kinds of activities. They can also join the painting workshop, or they can also play with their toys. And I also saw them playing Uno with their educator, which is quite interesting because I've never thought they would play card game, board game in the classroom. So all these activities is very different from what I had when I was in the kindergarten. When I was small, I didn't go to nursery. I went to just kindergarten. But my little cousin, who is much younger than me, he went to also nursery, and they also have this afternoon nap session. For the kindergartens in Hong Kong, we started learning how to write really early. The daily routine is more structured, and we also have to learn how to write both like Chinese, English, and we even have to do some mathematics when we are like 5, 6 years old. While the kids here are just eating, playing, sleeping all day, they didn't have to learn something more academic. In Hong Kong, we even have regular dictations and exams. We have dictations for Chinese and English, and also some exams every term. And there's also rankings and who ranked the best, who got the best scores, and who got less. We also have the report card. So the educators would discuss our academic result with the parents, just telling us what we can improve and stuff like that. If you're curious about how stressful Asian education is, you can also check out the other video here in which I talked a little bit about Asian parenting and tiger moms. Yeah, obviously Germany and Hong Kong are very different in that kind of social setting. That's why parents and children would behave in certain ways. But here in Germany, it's just more laid back and chill. They value more creativity and independence, so kids are allowed to be more creative, to do some self-discovery, to design their days, to decide who they want to play with, what they want to play with, and how they want to play. That kind of autonomy is something we are missing in Asia, I think, in general. Yeah, you can imagine even for kids who are at the age of 3, they already got academic pressure and peer pressure because they have to sort of compete with each other for a better kindergarten and for a better primary school because of the ranking of the school. It's crazy to have that kind of pressure since a very young age. So I really appreciate this Kita system in Germany. They allow kids to develop themselves at their own pace. As the activities at the Kitas are less structured in Germany, sometimes they just plan some activities depending on the weather. So I had this internship in July while the heat wave was there, so they would let the kids play outdoor with water, which was really fun. I remember I also had some similar activities like that to play water outside, but it's really rare. But here, that kind of activity is more usual. The other very memorable experience is that we had an Ausflug, which means a field trip. It's crazy because I was with the Krippen. They are so young and we have to dress them up with this vest to make sure they are visible, and they have to hold hands with each other, and we have to take all of them out, and then we have to take the bus together and then change for another bus, and we walk to the alpaca farm. That day was really hot. It was around like 30 degrees Celsius, and we had to manage those kids. Yeah, some kids at that early age would be easily distracted by like cars and other stuff around. So we have to be really cautious. We have to really pay a lot of attention to them to make sure they are following us and we are not missing any kids in the bus. But I feel like all the colleagues were really stressed about it. They also said they wouldn't do this next time. It's really fun, but it's really stressful to manage all the little kids. And at the alpaca farm, they had to feed the alpacas. It's really cute to see the kids feeding the alpacas, and the alpacas are also very friendly. When we returned, the kids were really exhausted. We brought only 2 trolleys for the toddlers, but the other kids were also tired, and some kids were asking me if I could hold them, but obviously I couldn't. But they are quite heavy as well when they're 2 or 3 years old. It's impossible to hold them, and my colleagues also told me not to hold them, just let them walk. One funny thing is that during the trip, one girl lost her shoe in the bus when we were on our way to the alpaca farm, but when we were going back to the Kita, we encountered the same bus. And the bus driver waved at us and showed us he got the shoe for the girl, which is really funny. And we clap our hands and we thank the driver. Everyone is exhausted, but we were like very happy. And I also felt the warmth of people in this town. That's a really cute moment that melts my heart. The other cultural difference that shocks me is the high independence of these kids. As every day they have to just decide what they have to play and with whom they play with. They can just so easily express themselves at a very young age. So through the interaction with the other kids, they can also learn how to receive rejection and how to invite people, how to express your own feeling, how to take accountability, and how to apologize. I think in Hong Kong, we are more well taken care of by the adults, by the helpers in the kindergarten. We call them 姐姐. So they would assist us to go to the washroom. They would take care of the diapers. I was also pretty surprised that kids can already help themselves. So basically after each meal, no matter it's the breakfast, lunch or tea time, the children all have to clean up their own dishes and they have to also clean the table. Sometimes they also have to clean the floor if they made a mess. I was really shocked how independent they are and how mature they are. They could already do that kind of simple housework. One specific moment that I still remember vividly is that there's a girl in the Krippen who is 3 years old and she helped the other smaller kids to pour the water for them. So the educator told her, hey, while you're helping him, the other kid could do it himself. So they stopped the girl from helping the younger kids, which was a very eye-opening moment for me, because in Asia, we always encourage people to help each other, to be a bit more attentive to others' needs. On one hand, it's good to see that people are more helpful, people are more attentive, more caring. But on the other hand, we sort of deprive the chance for the other person to do things themselves and to be independent, to stand up for themselves. So I think that there's like pros and cons depending on the situation. In that kind of situation, I think it's good to give the chance to some younger kids to learn how to take care of themselves, how to pour the water slowly and properly without making a mess. So gradually they will be able to train their muscle to pour the water themselves. And they are also more open to mistakes. That kind of independence doesn't just exist in that scenario, but also when they were playing with the other kids, when they get rejected, how they react, how they could play independently, or how they handle that rejection. It's also something that I didn't learn properly when I was a kid. I'm more influenced by the Asian culture. Sometimes we care too much about the others, and we forgot to put ourselves first, and we forgot to put our feelings first. We tend to be a bit more protective of ourselves and other people around us, especially some helicopter parents. So those kids don't have that many chances to learn, to process like how they really feel, how they face failure, how they handle mistakes. Because growing up, we were not allowed to make mistakes, which is also a kind of failure in education that made us so afraid of failure. But every failure is actually a chance for us to learn and to grow stronger, be a bit more resilient. So that kind of independent mentality has been developed since a very young age in Germany. In some kindergarten in Germany, they also hold a really strong belief that kids should be going outdoor every day. So no matter how the weather is, whether it's snowing, raining, they also get the kids outdoor for a walk and play a little bit outdoor. But for some private kindergarten, it's not necessary. But for certain kindergarten, they have such policy to get kids outdoor every day. In German mentality, we see this fresh air as really important element in our lives for our physical and mental health. That's why we always insist in Luften. So if you want to know more about German culture and how Germany changed me, you can check out this video here, in which I talked about how Germany changed me over the past years and how I started to adopt this famous German rule, es gibt kein schlechtes Wetter, nur falsche Kleidung. Over the past few years, I became a bit more resilient to cold weather and snow. Sometimes I could also do outdoor activities in winter, which is a really big change for me. And lastly, let's talk about what happens in the bathroom. 8 years ago, when I first moved to Germany for my studies, I realized that not only girls would sit on the toilet to pee, but also guys, which is quite a shocking information for me. And later on, I realized that it's not just one specific guy, but many other guys as well in Germany have the same habit. So I always wondered how they were educated in early childhood, how they use the toilet. So to be honest, I would appreciate that kind of gesture and culture in a domestic situation because I'm a bit of like clean freak. So that's really a plus point dating a German guy or having a German household. So in the kindergarten, I realized all the kids sit there to pee, and for Krippen, they didn't even separate the toilets for boys and girls, so they could both sit there and pee together next to each other, which was another eye-opening thing for me. But maybe for kindergarten, they would have a more separate bathroom door. I'm not sure because I didn't stay at the kindergarten for longer. I just spent one day there, so I didn't see that scenario myself. Spent the rest of my internship with the Krippen group. That's how I saw how this habit is developed in the Kita. When I was in kindergarten, I still remember we have way more people in one group and we are at the same age. So the boys and the girls would take turn to use the washroom, But I'm not sure about the nursery in Hong Kong because I didn't go to nursery. But for the nursery here, that means the Crippen group, most of the kids are still wearing diapers. So sometimes they can even like change the diaper themselves, and they could even throw their own diapers into the trash can, which I found very impressive. I was so impressed how independent they are at such a young age, because like the trash can is around their height, but they could still like press the cover of the can and then put it in and then close it themselves. Yeah, that kind of independence is just impressive. Some older kids around 2 to 3, they could even already take off their clothes themselves. They don't need help. So speaking of washroom in Kita, the other days when I watched Easy German, I also learned a Witze. It really took me some time to guess and wonder why the answer is that. I just wonder if you guys have heard of it. Was ist etwas grün auf dem Klo? And das ist Kaktus. And at the beginning, I didn't really get this joke, but then afterwards, yeah, oh my god, I got it. I hope you guys enjoy my sharing. So how about your experience in kindergarten in your country or in Germany? Please let me know in the comment section your interesting stories. I'm looking forward to reading your story and experience as well, even though so far I still wouldn't consider working there for long term. I don't know, maybe in the future I would reconsider it again. As I'm not raised in Germany, this is sort of experience that I didn't have. By working there for 2 weeks, I had much more insight in German education and German mentality and how this mentality is developed. So it's really fascinating. And at the end of the video, I have a little update about myself. I will start a new job in August. I'm trying to update this channel more often, but at the same time, I think I need more positive daily experience to keep this channel running. So I'll be still staying in the corporate world for now, and that's the first German speaking job I've got. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm so looking forward to that new experience, and hopefully I will improve my German. If you like my videos about cultural differences, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That means the world to me. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!